A game that I have been quite excited to see for some time, World War III is attempting to do something that not many other games have achieved. Create a Battlefield-style, all-out war first-person shooter game with large maps, 64-man servers, and infantry playing alongside vehicles. The premise of the game sounds fantastic, and when the original trailer dropped I was so hyped, and I think everyone else who watched the trailer was as well. I realised that the studio, Farm 51, did not really have anywhere near the same capacity as DICE and wouldn't be able to pull off a true Battlefield competitor. However, other events, such as the controversy surrounding BF5, caused World War III to gain even more support. This snowballed a bit, and even before we'd seen any real gameplay, everyone thought, including myself, that it could maybe rival Battlefield 5 to some extent. Now, as you all probably know, Gamescom brought new gameplay footage of World War III and many people got to actually try out the game. I wasn't one of them. I didn't actually go to Gamescom because of other work commitments, but I did get to watch many videos that have been uploaded since from the likes of LevelCap, Stoddy and JatFrags. This was an exciting prospect for myself, and as I said, although I didn't go, it did allow us to see whether Farm 51 had created something special or just another valiant attempt by a small studio. I'd say the results are around 50-50, it's clearly not a finished product, and of course it's still definitely in early alpha. However, the difference between Battlefield 5 and the alpha and the World War III alpha is massive. World War III is clearly a working product, and it will take quite some time before it is in what I would call a truly playable state. However, the principal ideas of the game still remain. The big question is, how can Farm 51 respond to the feedback and move the game forward? The next playtest and beta will be the proper tester, in my opinion. Plus, I'll be able to play the game myself, and that's the only way of really getting a true feel for how much work is required. Now in this video, I'm going to go through a few things that I really like from what I saw with the alpha, and a few things that I don't like, and a few things that definitely need work. Overall, as I said, it's definitely not the Battlefield killer that I hoped it would be at this stage, but it certainly has the potential and the support from the community to reach that level. Starting off, let's look at tank combat. It looks fun, and it's about time we received a game with some more advanced tank tactics and mechanics, especially considering that Battlefield 1 was a bit of a disappointment when it came to purely tanking. Clearly the tanks are a focus of gameplay in World War III, and that is awesome. The customization is brilliant. There is so much work that's been done in that section of the game. Even though you couldn't use a lot of it in the alpha, it's clear to see that it's going to be a major part of the game. You also will have access to a third-person camera, which is fun, but you won't get a reticle, which is really good I think, because in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, third-person tanking, although it was okay, it wasn't really that classic Battlefield that we were used to beforehand, and maybe this World War III game will go back to the roots of Battlefield almost, and make it a more slow, methodical and tactical experience. The focus on infantry and tank combat working together is something we haven't really seen before, and it's not really common in Battlefield. We've seen it a bit with maps like Propaganda in BF4 and a couple of maps in BF3 and then earlier in the franchise, but that's sort of been lost over the past decade or so, and nowadays you get planes, jets, helicopters, behemoths all mixed up into one massive all-out war experience, and it's a bit too much at times. Tactics tend to go out of the window, and it's more about run and gun, learning the map and just shooting players instantly, and the better your aim, the more kills you'll get. I think with World War III they are focusing on something slightly different, and the focus on the infantry and tanks at the start for the most part is a smart move, as we will still get a lot of exposure to different aspects of the game. However, it will be easier to refine. If Farm 51 had loads more vehicles from the get-go, it would probably be too much work for them to keep on top of it as a small studio, so we'd get a lot of vehicles that weren't balanced or just not fun to use. So I completely understand why they are leaving the air vehicles for now and possibly bringing them in at a later date. The pacing of the game is good. It's slightly slower and more methodical than Battlefield 4 and still does need a lot of refinement, but in my opinion that idea of having a slightly slower game is going to be to a lot of people's liking. The price. Around $20 I think is what they're asking for this game, which is a snip. It's an absolute bargain for a game that, in my opinion, will be better than what we saw in the alpha, and it could be a lot of fun. Think about the fact that Battlefield 5 will probably cost around £60. I think that's what many people are going to be paying for it. You're going to be paying less than a third of that for World War III. And in today's day and age of expensive games and cosmetics and DLC that all cost a fortune, $20 is not much at all, and will certainly help the game build up a core player base. Customization. This is what separates World War III from Battlefield and other games in my opinion, because it's customization done correctly. The focus is on enhancing the gaming experience, not filling the wallets of the developer and publisher as far as I can tell. Hopefully this is how it stays when the main game comes out. Outfitting soldiers looks like fun, and that is why I play games. I feel as if many people watching this will have really liked the overall feel of the customization, even just by watching gameplay and not even getting involved themselves, and when compared to what we see in BF5, it's quite a positive change. I like to think that what they've done at Farm 51 is a bit of a passion project. They've gone and got realistic representations of military units and soldiers, and although they do that in Battlefield and DICE are the best at doing that sort of stuff, I feel as if with World War III it's going to be more realistic in a way, and you're definitely going to be seeing the community reflect that, as many people have already stated how much they like the look of the customization. They've kept it fairly subtle but quite extensive, so you'll be able to create soldiers that look realistic and to military specification, which in my opinion is perfect. Now for the gunplay and movement, not something I can really comment on too much because I haven't played the game, but fully customizable weapons is something this game had to have, and it looks like they've done it well and it's great. You also need to learn about body armor weak points in order to get a fast time to kill, meaning understanding the enemy you are about to shoot is imperative, whilst having a solid aim is also going to be important, as it should be in any FPS game. The actual recoil and the mechanics of the weapons I can't really comment on. As I said, I haven't played the game, but it does look like there's a fair amount of recoil, and the guns are a bit of a handful to use at times, which again is perfect. Movement. The speed of your character changes depending on how much gear you have on you, including armor, weaponry, things like that, and that's the same as you'll see in games such as Arma, although this game is slightly faster paced, of course. A great approach in my opinion overall. You've also got access to sliding, proning, vaulting, and a whole load of other mechanics, however expect the game to play slower than Battlefield 4. Now for the negative stuff, the things I don't like. Let's start off with the big one, game performance. With an FPS game, you need to have 60 FPS minimum and the opportunity with a higher end rig to get 120 FPS plus. Now in the Gamescom build, I was pretty much seeing 30 FPS across the board. With a couple of gameplays that were recorded, it was more like 60. However, I think they locked it to 30 after a little while because they encountered some problems. I think they were running i5 CPUs and 1070s, which is your middle of the range build I feel nowadays for computers. Some people will be laughing at me saying that's a really high end build, but I think this game's coming out in 2018, an i5 and a 1070 is what a lot of gamers have. And considering that the game was also on fairly decent graphical settings from what people have told me, I feel as if 30 FPS is definitely low, but around 60 FPS would be acceptable on that build. And of course, an early alpha, it will be optimized. So assuming you have a fairly decent PC and don't mind turning the graphics down a bit, as many people do in favour of a solid FPS, I feel as if we won't have too many issues playing the game. That being said, it's incredibly important they up that, optimise the game, and get it into a playable state, I'd say, because 30 FPS is just far too low. Now, as for the way the game looked, I thought it looked really good. It reminded me of Battlefield 4 when the alpha and the beta came out. Some people said it looked grey and unsaturated, but personally, I'm a massive fan of that. You've got to consider that the game is being based in a war zone. The gameplay we saw, I think, was in Berlin. Some people are saying Warsaw, but I think it's in Berlin, especially during a European urban map. Bad weather, it was raining, it's going to look grey. I'm sorry, but that's what parts of Europe look like, especially during war, and I'm glad we've got that and not some super bright cartoon style Call of Duty copy, and it's fairly refreshing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Battlefield 4 was also fairly grey as well when it came to the urban map, so if anything, this is a positive, and they seem to have got it right in my opinion. That being said, the game performance is the real issue, and that should be a priority for the studio. Something that I didn't see too much of, but I've heard bad things about, are the kill streaks. It's not something that I think is really necessary in this game. The kill streaks seem to take away from that tactical, slower paced gameplay that everyone's been going on about. I think they can tweak it and change it, and obviously they want to have those kill streaks for the drones and little things you can bring in for your squads, but keep it within the same pace as the main game. Now for the early access part of the game. Whilst I think that it is great that the game is coming out very soon, because I really do want to play it, having an unfinished product hit the market, even when it is labelled as early access, can often lead to the thing not getting finished at all and getting a lot of negative press surrounding it. I'm not saying the studio will just take the money and run, but often it is better to get a game completed and released to the public in a real playable state, in the same way that Battlefield 5 will be. Even if the studio doesn't invest any more time into it, you're still going to have a fairly complete game to enjoy at the end of it. The other end of the scale is the PUBG scenario. The game was released in early access for ages and received constant updates, and although in my opinion it is still in need of some changes, it is presently in a far better position due to that early access release than it would have been if they may have kept the game behind the scenes and then released it afterwards. If you know what I mean, they needed the game to be played by the public in order to understand what was wrong with it. And I feel as if that might be a positive for World War III. That being said, I really do want the game to improve and be optimized over time. That is essential. Apart from those issues, I feel as if the game is going to be a great success. It's like a viewer in one of my earlier World War III videos said, it's like a Battlefield 4.5. Personally, I don't expect it to quite reach the levels of refinement that we saw in BF4, but maybe, just maybe, we might have something special here. Let me know in the comments what you think of this game. You've seen some gameplay, you've seen the trailers, you might have been lucky enough to play it. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you think the studio, Farm 51, are capable of creating here. Will it challenge Battlefield, or will it just be a fun game overall but never really reach the heights of a Battlefield 4? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.